I had a franchisee not too long ago, a couple months ago. We were having a conversation. He just says, Nate, should I be feeling guilty that I'm only working in my business like 2-3 hours a week? and and the rest of his team is right. I'm like, no, you shouldn't be. That's what you built this for. If they could have seen how much work and effort you put into it the first couple of years to get to a point where you could enjoy the fruits of your labor. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about, is creating the life that we want to live.
Hey, welcome listeners. Today I have the distinct honor and privilege of hosting and inviting and speaking with Nate Tu, the CEO and co-founder of Key Renter Property Management, not only a company based out of Midvale, Utah, but a company that has franchises all over the country. And I want to talk about that and get into that story as we dive in here with Nate. But Nate, welcome to the show today, man.
Paul, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're in Utah, which is one of my favorite places in the world. So anytime I can get out there, man, I'm loving life.
Oh, man, it's beautiful here. It's great. Mountains, if you like getting out in the outdoors, of course, skiing, snowboarding, hiking, southern Utah. I went there just a couple months ago with my kids, my family. It's beautiful here. And sun's out, the snow's melting. We've had record snows. It's just a great place to be.
Sweet. Well, let's dive into this, man. You've got an amazing story. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and wannabes that are listening to the show and watch the videos. And your story of building a business and then scaling it and then successfully franchising it, to me, is just fascinating. So tell us the story on kind of where you came along and how you got into business and kind of the whole genesis here.
Well, it's a fun story. It's one that starts back in 2006. I always had an interest in a desire to get into real estate and specifically into real estate investing. And I had a mutual friend with a guy that I was introduced to, and his name, the person I was introduced to, his name was Aaron Marshall, who later became my business partner for 15 years. And the day I met Aaron, he was a broker and actually a part owner of a Keller Williams office here in Salt Lake City. And the moment we met and we connected, I just knew, okay, this is a guy I want to hitch my wagon to. He was very successful as actually an REO broker selling bank foreclosures. I started working with him and helping him sell bank foreclosures with Keller Williams. And that's how I got my start in real estate. Before that, I actually did door-to-door sales, selling home security systems, and couldn't wait to get out of that and back into something a little bit less, in that way, direct sales kind of situation. But really enjoyed working with Aaron. I think we connected really quickly, just in our values, our vision, what we wanted for the future. Our families, very important, and I think that initial connection fostered a great relationship and a partnership that over 15 years as that flourished and grew and allowed us to do a lot of fun and interesting and great things together. But there's an element of selling bank foreclosures that is property management related. Sometimes you have homeowners where it forecloses and you're working with the banks to do a cash for keys situation, or sometimes even a lease back. And people thought we did property management back then, when really we were managing these bank homes. But then something happened with the market turning, right? 2007, 2008. We were flipping some houses. He and I both wanted to be doing that, flipping houses, taking advantage of the market at that time. But then we had homes that weren't flipping. And so we turned them into rentals. And as I was managing these rentals for us, it just made sense that we would turn that into a business. And so we actually, took some thought and we put some planning into it and started this business in property management. We actually had a wrong phone call too that really helped us out, give us some motivation. It was some investors out of California that said, "Hey, we heard you manage homes for clients." At that time, we didn't. On the phone, I remember just saying, and they said, "Will you take these 4 properties on for us?" And I just said, "Yeah, we'll do that." and Paul, it's so funny because they didn't ask for the name of our company, they didn't ask for anything, and luckily they didn't because we didn't have it yet. But very quickly, I focused on property management. Aaron, my business partner, continued to have his REO business, and that started to wind down as the Foreclosure Act was passed, and it was more challenging for banks to foreclose, and so that business dried up a lot. But in that about 3-4 year span, we grew this local property management company to several hundred homes under management. And me being a systems guy, having a background, education in business and economics, and really just thriving in kind of the tech space that was just really in its infancy at that point, in property management specifically, I was really geeking out on some of the tools that we could use to leverage to make the business easier to run. And eventually we got to a point in 2013, 2011 actually is when it started, this desire of going nationwide. And we were looking at opening up our own offices, our own locations in Arizona, Colorado, Nevada. We were looking at getting licensed. And we quickly realized, okay, for us to open these locations nationwide and for us to own them 100%, we're going to have to travel quite a bit. We're going to have to carry the liability of these locations, the trust accounts, the things that are associated with that, staff, hire, train. And it just wasn't something that really set well with us. And so we were looking at other options, and we saw, it's kind of funny. I watched an episode of Undercover Boss. You seen that show, Paul?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that
Love it.
show? I'm sure
Love
a
it.
lot of the listeners or viewers like that show too. And there was an episode in October of 2013, the founder of Menchie's. Okay. And I watched this episode. I was so inspired by the franchise concept and his franchise model that the next day I go to Aaron and say, "Hey, Aaron, what do you think about franchising? What do you think about us taking this and aligning with partners, business owners
Right.
that would be vested in their business? They would be taking the reins from us in these local markets and growing from there." And we had seen that work in our space. There's a couple of other franchisors still active today, and they're actually they started out of Utah as well. Utah's kind of this incubator for a lot of things like that. But he said, "Well, that's great. Why don't we come up with a list of things we need to look for and look into as we're evaluating franchising as an option. Come back the next week and say, Aaron, what do you think? What should we evaluate? How should we do our due diligence on this?" And he says, and this will help you get to know Aaron Marshall a little bit. He says, "What are you talking about? I already have the website. I already hired the franchise attorney. We already have this. We already have these things going." And that's just who he was. He was the guy that, man, he just had so much vision and such a drive to move things forward. And he and I were like yin and yang in the sense that, I was there to kind of put things together and integrate and just be able to help move the vision forward at a with